Okay, I'll say it again. We are starting the May 25th, 2022 meeting of the Environmental Management Commission. And I see that we have quorum, so I will call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. We actually made it on time. To run through roll call, from District 1, John Burns is not able to be here. District 2, Elise Robinson, wave. John Olson is the only one in person at our Hilo location. Melissa Cardwell from District 5. McIntosh from District 6. Dee Fulton will be joining us later around 10:30, and I might be reordering things to make sure she gets in on discussions she wants to be. Rick Gaffney from District 8 is here, and I'm Georgine Adams, the chair. I'm from District 9. We have, as my usual, very crowded agenda, and we'll try to get through what we can. The first order of business is the approval of our minutes from April 27th of our regular meeting. We'll have a separate vote on the hearing portion that we held on that day. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
With a second from Rick. Any discussion, corrections? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from April 27th, say aye.
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 Any nays? No. Okay, we are approved. All right, the next one, which Peter called Volume 2, which was the contested case hearing regarding appellant Kayala Partners that we had as a portion of the April 27th meeting. So need a motion to adopt those minutes.
So moved.
And I should clarify, although I think everybody but John Olson, who was recused from the hearing, only those of us who participated are able to vote on the minutes. Is that correct? Oh, Attorney Sinclair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I got 2 seconds. Okay. Are there any corrections or changes? I have one. I forget why. That's a pun, guys. Why I looked up why when we were talking about Y connections. And I was on the internet, and it's not a capital Y. It's WYE. It's some special plumber jargon. So I would make a recommendation that we correct the written transcripts for where it says Y connection to say it spelled WYE. And that would apply not only to these hearing minutes, but also to the last one. So I think if I get Robert's rules right, we need to have, I need to ask, are there any other corrections? Comments from people? So I think we need to revise the motion, that it's a motion with the correct spelling of Y in our hearing minutes.
I move we adopt the minutes with the corrections Georgine just mentioned about Y connections to this meeting and previous meeting minutes.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
A second from Rick. All in favor who were there at the hearing? Or say aye.
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 That's any nays? Okay, then the motion is to approve the minutes with that correction. And then if anybody wants to know what the heck a WYE is, we'll let Ramsey tell us about it. But for now, just spell it right. Peter does a yeoman job in trying to get those minutes off of transcripts, and holy cow, especially when the English language is so wonderful at sounding like all the same words. Statement from the chair. As I said, we've got a lot of stuff to go through. I sincerely hope you've all been looking and thinking about the materials that have gone out in our last meeting, so that we have good discussion. Are there any public statements on any of the agenda items?
Yes, Chair, we do have one public testifier.
Okay. And who is that?
Hi, go ahead. I'm Jennifer Navarro with Zero Waste Hawaii Island. Hi, everyone today. I just wanted to comment on agenda item, what was it? 5.2 regarding the composting and the discussion on backyard composting, which I think is great. And if we could get everyone on the island to start doing their own composting, that'd be amazing. But I think that the commission and DEM should look to other options as well. And I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think it's possibly a great interim solution. But I want everyone to kind of keep in mind that, backyard composting might not be something that every member of the island would be able to participate in. And so we really want to look towards other options as well. Perhaps in-vessel composting systems distributed, throughout residential areas, maybe at a school or a farmer's market where people could drop off compost, or also the Compost Hawaii pickup service. I think that the most convenient thing is the most likely that we're going to get everybody to participate in. And so, thinking about maybe many different solutions rather than one, really thinking about it in a systems context is important. Certain people like elderly or, myself, a renter who moves frequently, the backyard composting is not a super feasible solution. And if it's not managed properly, creates, pest problems. I'm definitely guilty of not managing my compost properly. And if we have a lot of people backyard composting and not managing properly in a densely populated area, we might create some unintended pest consequences. So I think we also could try to do some surveys to residents and see what are people already doing? What are people interested in? What would be the right solution for them? Definitely what we can make as the most convenient thing is probably the best. Behavior change is such a hard thing, and just getting someone to take their organic waste out from the rest of the waste is just a big enough step in and of itself. And so that's all I really wanted to share. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I hope we'll have some of that conversation when we hit that agenda item. And we also have a guest speaker from Kauai who will contribute to that. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also in the awkward position of wanting to wait until Senator Berry can join us, which probably won't be until about 9:35. So I'm going to dance and move things around a little bit just for timing purposes. So please forgive me. The next item on the agenda is going to unfinished business and the individual commissioner priorities. And if there's anybody who'd like to update us on what they've been up to, now is the time. Anyone? Silence. Tisk tisk. Okay. I obviously sort the agenda according to my priorities, so I don't need to take time to talk about what I'm up to now. But I do need to go through some formal hoops for the permitted interest group that we have looking at barriers to private businesses and that EMC might be able to address. There are 3 people on the group and one of them has left the commission, Carrie Hopi. And so I need some more help. And Elise Robinson has graciously volunteered her interest, but we need to get approval from the commission to replace Carrie onto the PIG. So I believe, and Sinclair, correct me if I'm wrong, we need a motion to appoint Elise and a vote.
That would be good.
I would make that motion.
Thank you, John. Second,
A second.
Melissa. Any discussion or other volunteers? We are not limited in the number of participants on the PIG, I believe, unless it's the whole committee, and then it's kind of a strange thing, but assuming not, okay. Could I have a voice vote on appointing Elise to the permitted interest group? Investigation
Aye.
group. Everybody say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any nays? As Elise has second thoughts, you feel free to say nay if you wish. Then I now appoint, you are appointed by the commission to this investigation group. I have been making some calls and doing some interviewing, but I'm looking forward to Elise helping to join us on the east side to contact more people and see whether there are some things that the commission can recommend action to improve the ability of private parties to do recycling, businesses in particular. Since it's not 9:30 yet, I'm going to skip around a little bit. The next topic is to discuss the concept of distributed composting, which Jennifer had discussed. One of the questions, I talked about it and rapidly read through one of his slides. I just wanted to make sure people had an opportunity to look at Michael Peron's presentation that he did 2 years ago, pre-COVID. And if there were any things that people wanted to particularly highlight or focus on, would appreciate comments.
Well,
Nope.
from the-
This,
Does
this
it,
is,
John?
no, go ahead.
this is Commissioner McIntosh.
Oh,
The only thing I can really think of is that I think rather than the county trying to take everything onto itself, it should open up the barriers to private citizens running their own business or whatever they want to, working together to compost. That, I mean, the county can also pursue ideas, but it just seems everything is focused on the county rather than letting the industry and private sector do what it wants to.
well, I think part of it is, for this commission, that's what our charter is to look at how we can work with DEM. But yeah, that basically is one of the purposes of the PIG that we've got, is looking at what's keeping more private people from doing it. And a lot of it, I mean, this last 2 years has been so bizarre. I'd like to just blanket cut it out. That it's funding, it's staffing, and there's no money for the county, much less for the public to or private businesses to get going on things. So at a minimum, what we're trying to look at, are there things that are in the way? that don't allow it. But it is, as Jennifer said, it's a system. It's not just one piece. You've got to, close circle, you've got to collect it, you've got to transport it, you've got to manage it once you got it, and then do something with it once you have your compost, and then keep the cycle going. That's a lot of pieces. And I believe, as Michael told us when he made his presentation, that a single company can't do that. It's a bunch of companies working together to manage the whole distribution, processing, and redistribution, and continuing education for the public. And then from the government side, a concern that it's being done safely, that whether it's fire ants or other pests that are coming up. Fires have happened. Every once in a while, I see poofs over at the landfill down past Waikoloa that are coming up from green waste even. So there are things that need to be in place to make sure people are doing it right. And probably the biggest thing I've seen from private business and public efforts is sustainability. Just keep doing it. It isn't a one shot. It's got to be an ongoing process that's supported and maintained. So it's my frustration over seeing, oh, we've got this grant. Yeah, it's a 1-year grant. And then what? Are you going to have enough enthusiasm, participation, and funds to keep something going? So it's not easy. If it were easy, it'd already be done. It's hard. So that's my 3.5 cents. Other comments?
Well, I was involved in the redesign of the transfer stations in Puna, the 3 of them that we have. I think the biggest hurdle we faced in the beginning was State Department of Health, getting their cooperation in participating in a timely manner. Beyond that, on the county side, their unwillingness to want to spend the money necessary to create an area that would be conducive to all of the different things that I think collectively we believe should be happening. I mean, at this point, Puna, speaking for Puna, we need to be moving these facilities into the subdivisions. As it is now, 2 of the sites are buried off the grid, and the other is on the highway to death. Literally, I mean, because of the way they designed it, you get to pull out from the transfer station into 45 to 50 mile-an-hour traffic. No problem there. We've only killed 9-10 people since it opened. And of course, it's a state highway, which another level of complexity dealing with the State Department of Transportation. Go. Got a hand up.
Yeah, well, I'd like to just, because I know, John, you've said this many times and we hear it. And unfortunately, I mean, I use that KL transfer station all the time, and I personally don't find it unsafe. It is a yield lane, so you can sit in that yield lane. And anyway, it's beside the point. But I wanted to echo what Lee said about the private sector. I do think that if we're talking about county funds, then yes, of course, we're always going to run up against the fact that the county doesn't have enough money for this, for that, but the private sector does. And so to me, that is one of the avenues that I think needs to be, discussed, pursued, the public-private partnership avenue, because the fact of the matter is that we're not reinventing the wheel here. You know, there are plenty of examples of composting happening, you know, all across the country. And so it's a matter of, I think, figuring out, you know, what is the county responsible for, what can be done with private money, and can there be a partnership between the two? Because you're right, you know, Georgine, as you said, there's all these issues. There's, you know, there's the pest issue. We don't want to be attracting, you know, even more rats than we already have. And so there needs to be oversight as far as that's concerned. But I do think that there is money available. It's just a matter of figuring that out. And so I think, Michael, if I unfortunately, I've had a very busy month and I haven't had a chance to look, you know, to watch his presentation again, but I do remember him making that point about, you know, just about private funds. And I've had numerous talks, you know, a while ago with Chantal over in South Kona, who's been doing composting, and she has a very successful program. But it's a lot of work for one person. So, so it does need to be tackled by, you know, multiple people, whether it's multiple companies or whether it's the same company with multiple branches. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, it's definitely the issue. And again, it's how can you sustain the business to make sure, especially at sufficient scale, to have a steady stream of customers and suppliers, and you know how to keep the process, whether it's a mechanical or physical turn the pile type of operation, and the trucks and all the stuff that goes with it. It's not trivial. And if Senna can break off of the webinar she's in, which she says is really good, so I'm looking forward to hearing about it. We'll hear from Kayla Aki from Kauai and the experiences that they've had. I think the county there has stepped up perhaps more than we're ready to, but they're a smaller county. So we'll hear from him on approaches they can take. Melissa, you had more comment?
I just had one more thing I want to say, which is that, you know, if we look at the green waste program here, you know, how successful that's been and how in demand it is, that kind of gives us an idea of, you know, we know that compost is something that's highly valuable, especially in the Big Island. We don't have soil, you know, it's an agricultural island, a lot of people growing food. So I think in my mind, one way of it being sustainable, rather than having it be free, right? Like the county provides this green waste, you know, the mulch for free, then there'd be a fee for it. You know, people would have to pay for it. And also, if it's done correctly, because one of the problems that I've encountered personally with the county's mulch, we don't even get it anymore because it's filled with trash. And not only is it filled with trash, but because it's not composted properly, there's tons of invasive species in it. So we have like tons of weeds that we're dealing with now that we didn't have previous to bringing in the county mulch. So my point is that if this is compost that's being done correctly, meaning that, you know, the fire ants, it gets so hot that the fire ants can't survive, that weeds can't survive, it's going to be very desirable. And I do think that people would be willing to pay for it. And I think that could be one of the ways in which it is a sustainable thing, right? Georgine, as you're saying, you know, how do we sustain this? A one-year grant's not going to do it. But if people continue to show up and pay for it, that could be part of the revenue stream.
I saw Ramsey's name out there. Are you there, Ramsey? I mean,
Yes, I'm here.
Number 4 on our list is the status of contract. I'm dealing specifically with the HER mulch operation. Number 1, it's mulch. It's not compost. It's mulch. So it's not going to be the wonderful grow your petunias in it soil amendment. its soil cover. I don't know, whatever the term of art is. And again, I believe, and Ramsey, you could correct us, or maybe Malia can jump in. We've got some contractual issues on the mulch. I don't know if you want to talk about that. And expectations, there are also expectations. They're not supposed to allow, certainly the fire ants and other live pests, weeds, I'm not so sure. But would you care to comment, one on just the status of contract negotiations, but also just the current contract, and the issue of charging for the mulch?
Currently, as you all know, the contract does not deliver the compost, and there is some issue contractually about this contract in general, but the details we cannot talk about or discuss. But everybody got the same message as you guys got, and we understand there's challenges in this contract. They're not delivering compost. Unfortunately, it was written to pay for compost, even though if they don't deliver it. So it was negotiated that way. But I cannot give you any more information besides I hear you loud. We've been on the same track ourselves, trying to figure this out, but we'll get there hopefully sooner than later.
Thank you. My understanding of that contract is that HER has the, and authority is not the right word, the ability to charge for the mulch if they want to. Is that true?
The mulch they create, they charge the loading fees. So they do
I thought they could
charge
sell it.
to load them.
That they were able to sell it if they wanted to.
They own it, but I don't think the one that created within the county, they could sell, but I know they try to bring compost from Oahu and trying to sell it here. So as far as the mulch, what they create, they're supposed to give about 300 tons free to residential at the Hilo, plus or minus, but they charge you for loading that mulch into your vehicle.
Okay. Again, I'm dancing here with timing. Are there other comments before we can get to the example? Oh, Senna, are you there? I see your name. I wonder if she's.
I'm here.
Okay, well, let's go to Kauai because they have had experience, lots of experiences that I think would be interesting for us to hear, but specifically about their new program of handing out those residential composting bins and the analysis they've done. They also did a survey, which is in our record. So I don't know, Senna, if you would like to introduce Keola Aki, who comes up autocorrect as Kevlar. That I thought was pretty interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
It's I love autocorrect. So yeah, I was like Kevlar. So hi, welcome. I just came from an EPA really interesting grant webinar I'll tell you guys about. It's great. Anyway, I spent the day yesterday actually with Keola. I flew to Oahu and we toured around different facilities and etc. Keola Aki is recycling coordinator for the county of Kauai. He's been with them for quite some time, moved up the ranks, and he's a wealth of information and a pleasure to know. So Keola.
Thank you, Senna. And yes, that trip yesterday was amazing. It was a great all-around experience, and I'm sure Senna's going to get you guys up to speed on how that panned out. But thank you, Georgine and other commissioners for inviting us over to speak with you folks on our program. And I am so glad I logged in early to hear some of the issues the Hawaii Island is facing, and trying to understand where you guys are coming from. We are, even though we're all in Hawaii, you guys have a lot of different issues to deal with than what we have on Kauai. So again, I'm glad that I was able to listen in, hear some of the issues you guys are dealing with. So if you guys need me to, I can speak to anything that may come up, but specifically I'm talking about our home composting program. We have had it for about 20 years now, operating, and it's highly successful for the residents we have on Kauai. It's a free program we offer as something that our residents can participate in. And even as a free program, it is one of our most cost-effective programs. We, based on the survey that you folks have, we estimate the cost is around $5. It has gone up a little bit, maybe up to about $5.26, $5.30 per ton for each unit that they can produce in a year of processing green waste. It is not a high volume project or process by any means, but as an individual, you can divert up to 1 ton a year or more if you're hyperactive on composting and you're able to get this work the process, get the compost bin doing its job. And as Zero Waste Hawaii Island has stated, it does take work. It's not an easy process, but it is something everybody can do if they have the appropriate space to do it in. So again, it is highly successful, and it is a great component to the program we have right now for our general green waste processing. So I'm available if you guys have any specific questions on the survey you guys saw, or on in general, what can we, what kind of information you need on the project. I also, just as a note, I did invite my supervisor, the solid waste programs coordinator, Allison Fraley, to join us. So she did jump in and she's listening in, because we're all in this together. We want to find out how all the different counties are dealing with this kind of issue, because for us, the main thing is we only have 5 years left on our landfill, and we want to try and divert as much material as possible. You guys have different issues. You have a lot more landfill space, but you still want to deal with this potentially a material that can really affect your landfill in the long term. So again, if you have any specific questions, I'm here for it. Oh, and I will be muting myself. I am in an open office, so if I'm not speaking, I'll mute myself, because otherwise you'll hear everybody else in my office.
I had a question, Kevlar. This is for food waste and green waste?
Yeah, we leave it up to the individual. We do put out a lot of hints and tips on our website, kauai.gov/composting. And we have our video available. That's one thing Allison told me to make sure to tell you folks, that the process has gotten easier over our 20 years of doing this. And we've got it down to a video that was produced, I believe, 6 years ago. And we've updated it just on addendums to the video. So we don't have to produce a video every year. But in the video, it talks about what you can put into the bin, what you shouldn't put into the bin. So food waste definitely can go in there. There's certain products like meat and fish and some other, and oils and fats you may not want to put in there, because it's going to make it really smelly. And it's not part of the video, but I do tell people, if you do have this material, it's very rich in nutrients. So if you want to dig a hole and plant it in the ground, it can feed different plants just depending on what kind of nutrients they need. So you don't have to throw it away. If you want to go the extra mile and start digging holes around your yard, burn it, then it decomposes naturally. But yeah, you can put fresh fruits and vegetables, not fresh, but vegetables and fruits that you want to just compost, you can. You turn it, the process is great as long as you're putting the right components of your wet and dry material. It'll compost it down nicely.
I did want to congratulate you on the participation in your survey was unbelievable. You must have gone door to door and handed out candy to get that many people to participate. So congratulations on that. And it certainly seems like you've got some really good PR out of it, that people appreciate the services you provide. So I'll shut up and let other people ask questions.
Keola, this is Elise Robinson. I have a few questions for you. I'm curious about what other options did you consider, not you, but your department consider, other than the home composting?
Are you talking about the unit types or just different options for green waste processing?
Different options for green waste processing.
So we have, I know it may not be an option for every county, but we do, we restrict green waste from our landfill firstly for commercial. So businesses can't just landfill their green waste. They have to take it to a permitted composter. We do have, I gotta count them on my fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4 permitted composters, 2 on the North Shore, 1 centrally located and 1 on the west side. The west side operator is funneled, all their material is processed through the county. We have a contract with them. So whatever they touch actually goes through the county. They have a contract with us to take it, and we do all the billing, or the billing's all wrapped up in there. For everybody else, the residents on island, we have compost or green waste drop off at all our transfer stations and at the landfill. And the county is responsible for hauling this material to the end destinations, whoever we have a contract with for processing. And it is a competitive bid process. We are paying a little bit over, and I want to shoot out the numbers, don't be scared, but it is what it is. A little over 800,000 to process whatever material on from three of our transfer stations. No, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 transfer stations. That's one contract. And then we have another contract for some of our west side material. Actually, 2 other contracts for west side material because they go to 2 different locations. But the county does handle that. That's where the bulk of the material is composted via those contracts. Our residential is super high participation in that. We don't mandate residential composting, but since they're available at all our transfer stations, all the residents come in. It's a huge program. We're hauling literal tons of material weekly to these facilities. And it is through the contract process, we are paying per ton for the processing. And I can get into the weeds on it. I know it's a lot of information. So if you guys want to check out these contracts, I can make them available. You guys can see the cost, the breakdown, what we require, and all that other information.
And so what was the experience level of the participants before they took the home composting product home? Were they already composting or already active with recycling? Or maybe you can speak about their attitude towards recycling.
So that it varies hugely. We have some folks that COVID was actually a big boost for our program. When everybody had to stay home, they were like, what can I do at home? I've finished painting my house. I've done this. What else can I do? So they researched and they found our program. And so we have, in the last couple of years, we have a lot of new people that have never composted before, trying it out. And we've only heard good things about it. That's something they can do at home that they want to participate in. Some people have been longtime composters, and they want to see how our bins work. One thing that comes up a lot is people want a little bit more convenience. Like there's turning bins and a lot fancier bins. Our bins are very simple. You guys can watch the video on it. It's you pop it together. It comes in 3 or 4 different parts. Super simple. We get into your car. It fits. I've gotten into those small smart cars, and people haul it home, snap it together in 5 minutes, plant it in the ground, and they're good to go. And the feedback from the guys that are a little bit more experienced is, it's a little bit rough. It's, you got to go in there and do a lot of work, and we've tried to help them. We're like, well, you can try it like this. You don't have to do it that way. But if you have another thing you want to do, it's whatever works for you. And we want to ensure that whatever level you're at, we're here to help you. So it does take a lot of education. And we try and build in hints and tips onto our website directly. So if it's something that's already been addressed, people can look it up and try and figure it out. But you also have the guys that think, oh, well, this is free. And I have 80 acres on the North Shore. It's very wet. I'm going to get 10 of these. And we try and work with these guys, these customers, and say, well, that's a little bit too big for our little compost bin. So how about you try this? You grab a whole bunch of free pallets from somebody, a business that is trying to get rid of it, lash them all together, make yourself a whole bunch of nice little composting units that will do the same thing that we will with our little composter, but it'll give you a lot more flexibility. So we try and work with each individual customer. If as much as we can, we are a small group. We have about 5 people that answer our general phone line, and only 3 of us are specialized or able to speak to composting. So it just varies. A lot of people come brand new. They see it's free, they want to try it, and that's great. We want to get their foot in the door and try and get them going and composting as much as possible. But again, some people just know how it works, and they just want to try it. And for them, they have another solution, and we welcome that. And so we let them go.
One last question. How did you communicate to the public about this program?
Oh, it's been around forever. There's a lot of word of mouth on Kauai, so that helps significantly. We have neighbors talking to neighbors, and they're just like, yeah, you can get this free from the county. And I'm hoping when they say that, they also are telling their neighbor, okay, and this is how you do it. Instead of just like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get it. I'm going to plant it in my yard, and it's just going to sit there doing nothing. And some people are like that. Some people just use it as something you throw your green waste in and just let it age. I'm going to let it mummify. It's just up to you. As long as you're putting material in there, you're trying to divert material, you can do what you need to do with it. But if it's not working with you, we also offer them to give it back. The other ways we do advertising for compost bin, we have it in our, we have a green recycling guide that we hand out to the public. We make it available at our transfer stations. It has all our programs in there, and composting has its own little section where folks can read about it, learn about it, and just see if it's right for them. Otherwise, our website does have all information there, and the video is up on YouTube. So, if somebody types in Hawai'i composting, there's a chance YouTube might be able to generate the video for us on a search, and people can view it. There was actually, funnily enough, somebody has another Kauai compost, the earth machine video that we never contracted them to make. They just did it. And that was getting a lot of hits before we uploaded our version. So, but in the end, at the end of the day, it's a lot of word of mouth. And once you say free, it really starts the fire. People take it from there.
Thank you.
I have one question. What's your population now?
Between 70 and 80,000. Not counting all of.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
This is Commissioner McIntosh. You mentioned that for the green waste program at where you accept it, do you have problems with people mixing in regular trash with it? Do you have to sort it? Because I know that was an issue that the Big Island had, and that's why they stopped doing it.
So our sections, luckily our green waste drop off is pretty much like right next to where you can drop off your refuse. So it's convenient where if they have both, they can drop off the refuse first and then head over to the green waste. I haven't heard there is always occasions when there's contamination in the loads that go to the composters. For us, a lot of the times it might be a lot of rocks and whatnot that are just picked up with the loads. And sometimes it's from us as we're loading. I haven't heard of specific rubbish because we do have an attendant on site for most of these locations, and they're watching people come in, seeing what the loads they have, and we're trying to keep it clean. There is contamination, but it's usually very minimal, and we are able to catch it one way or another. And again, since everything is co-located, if we find something, we can just move it to where it needs to go.
I have a quick question. This is Commissioner Cardwell. I know this program's been going on for 20 years, which is amazing, but do you have a sense like currently of how many people are using it, or over the years, maybe what, because I'm just thinking if your population 70,000, as you know, Big Island's obviously much bigger. It seems to me like this kind of program it's almost like we could have it in each district, on our island. But yeah, I just want to have a sense of how many people you think are taking advantage of this program.
Well, what we found is acceptance and use over time, based on the few surveys that we have done. There's very minimal group of people that aren't able to keep up or that have stopped using it. It might be on a survey already, but just off of the top of my head, I think most people do keep it for we estimate 10 years of life on each unit. They keep it for the full time, and some people keep it running longer, only coming to us if something breaks on it, due to the sun beating on it, it'll break down. And we do it. We do free replacements and we talk about it. But a lot of people, once they get going, they'll use it. They may not use it like exactly out of the box, go in there, turn it, water it, do all that, but they'll use it to the best of their abilities, and for their area where they're living in. We do have a lot of people moving from place to place, and then they ask us, oh, what should I do with the bin? We just say, well, if you can ask the landowner or whoever you're renting from, if you can just leave it there for the next renter, that's what we encourage. So somebody else might be able to use it. And then when they get to a new location, grab another bin and get it set up. And then that way they can continue using the bins. I would say initial uptake, you might have to work through the issues, and the same issues of critters getting into the bins, of the bins breaking or being falling apart. Over our 20 years, we've been able to compile all the issues and try to work through them. So people come in with fresh eyes, so we don't have people just like, oh, it's not working for us. We can't, it doesn't work because of this, and this. What was it? Have you tried all these different remedies? And through this process, we have a lot more people sticking with it, or at least understanding what are the issues before they come in, so they don't just drop the program right away. They give it a good go, and maybe after a few years, they can't keep up with it, and then they call it from there.
Rick Gaffney, you had a question?
Yeah, Keola, have you done a calculation on what percentage of the island's green waste is diverted as a result of this program?
It is part of our waste diversion rate, and trying to see if it's all up on our website. I can send Georgine the link to it, where it specifies this many tons are estimated from the program. And you guys can see all of our tonnage there on our waste diversion rate. Breaks down all the different items, and you can see what our county is doing for green waste recycling. So what the percentage of that versus this home program. And it's all broken down, so it's available. I can make it available.
Thank you.
Senna, would you like to comment briefly about your efforts to, with others, I guess, to get some money for these bins?
Sure. Well, we started last year with, I got the pricing update and the price has gone up quite a bit. This is before the pandemic, actually 2 years ago. Anyway, we started writing a grant toward, I think it's a, I can't remember who the grant from. I got so many grants floating in my head right now. Anyway, solid waste, it's a solid waste grant. And so we're trying to put together a program that ties in education similar to pretty much, you know, copy and paste, change the names with respect to Kauai's program. And I've been trying to find out what, I know when I worked for the county before in 2011, but I was only here for a short while, that we had earth machines that were given out, but I don't remember what educational component was, if it was just a one-off or if it was part of a bigger, you know, process. So, but this is definitely something that I've been really excited about the program. Apparently it's less than because I've been saying $7, $8 per ton. And this Keola says it's $5, $6 per ton. So I've been, you know, it's like, why aren't we doing this? So this is a pretty high priority for me. But that has to fit in with all the priorities in my recycling section. So as you know, there's many,
So I guess I would ask a feel for the commission. I don't know that we need to make a particular motion on it. Is, you know, is this a worthy thing to investigate? Certainly from an ROI basis, it sounds like a no-brainer. But we need to find the money just to buy the bins in the first place.
okay. Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
The one aspect, and maybe you guys covered this in the discussion of this, but the one aspect of this program that I love is it's my belief that when people handle their own waste, their own trash, they become mindful of what they're wasting. So not only are they going to be composting this and reducing greenhouse emissions, also they start going like, oh my gosh, why am I throwing away, 6 apples? So maybe I don't need to buy 12 apples a week or whatever and stuff. So not just with food waste, but with everything, when you have to literally handle it, not just put it in a chute and go, oh, I'm throwing it away. So it's a full on, in my opinion, like an exponential educational process. Then the kids get excited about science and they're like, oh my gosh, and then they get into vermiculture. So it's not just the value of the actual, $6 per ton. It has all the educational value in that as well. So that's all.
I appreciate it. Any other comments from commissioners? Melissa?
I guess yes, Georgine, since you mentioned, how do we pay for this? I wonder how, maybe I missed this, but how is Kauai paying for these bins? How are they doing it? If Kayla is still there, maybe we can answer that.
I see my boss popped on with her camera, so she'll probably talk to it. So Allison Fraley, Solid Waste Programs Coordinator.
Aloha, am I showing up or
Yes.
is this the control?
Yep.
Okay, hi. Hey, thanks for letting me pop on. I was excited when I heard Keola that was doing this presentation today. This is one of our premier programs at the County of Kauai, and we have been doing it, for 20 years now. And we've been able to convince our council that this is a really good investment. As Senna said, that people are managing their own trash in their own backyard. So we don't have any hauling of this material. We don't have to pay for processing of it or worry what the end destination is. It is all handled in people's backyards, the hands-on program. And so we've been fortunate enough to convince our council to pay for this service through the bins, basically, through general funds. So we've gotten about, I think it's about $45,000 every few years to distribute the number of bins that we're distributing on a regular basis, which is about, I think, Keola, you had said 300 bins a year. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you could just.
Yeah, it's about 7 bins a week, 350 about. High range is close to 400 a year. So with one order, we're able to supply about 2 years worth of bins, and that, but that's to a mature program. A program first starting up, you guys might have a lot of throughput initially until everybody's, that wants one gets one.
Or you have a bigger population, so you might have to buy more bins. Another success of our program is that we've distributed from our own facility. And so we have a place that everybody knows where they are, because we found that with other programs like our electronic waste, if we move the location where it's being distributed, people get confused and they think 10 years later that it's going distributed from another place. So we really have been fortunate that we've had consistent funding, always have bins in stock, and always have the same location to distribute from. And we've been fortunate to work with agencies like nonprofits that want to help distribute. So we have contracted with them, or not contracted, but made agreements with them so that they could do the work to distribute. And like I said, like Keola said, that we have a video that's really simple. So this has evolved over time. We've learned the hard way on a lot of this stuff. So that's why we're excited to share this mature program with you, that we think that a lot of the kinks are out of it. So we can work directly with your recycling office, if you were to fund this, to make sure that your program was a success.
Well, it seems like if you're saving a ton a year going into your landfill, you've saved money.
Yes.
To easily cover how much it costs. So I don't know, I guess I would say it certainly is something I think we ought to look hard at the parameters to make it work here on this island. And if we need to be more formal about making that recommendation, I'll entertain a motion, but keep going for it, Senna. I think it's worth it.
Sana, do you need, so I'm wondering what action we could take as a commissioner, individual commissioners, to help you move forward with this, or help you make some progress on addressing this? What would you like to see?
Well, I appreciate the support. I've been so excited about this program for 3 years now, so this is really great news. I guess it depends on, I'll talk to my bosses to find out at what level, because it is an instant, well, I won't go into all the benefits of it, but I'm also at the same time, since I'm new in this position and there's just so much going on, like I'm literally have 20 plates in the air on a regular basis. So I will check my bosses and connect with Georgine, but I really, really, really appreciate the support. And whether it needs to be a formalized, memorandum, just explaining all of it in a different format or what. So, but I will keep up with Georgine and talk to Ramsey and Brenda and Mike about this. So thank you.
Okay, and it may be something, once you've got a proposal that kind of lays out, here's what I think, the program would need, then we can sign on to it or give you grief, whatever. So good follow-up. Thank you very much. I'm gonna move us along. I haven't seen Tim Richards show up. Oh, Melissa, you wanted to make a comment? Unmute, Melissa.
I wanted to request a break soon.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead, because I'm ready to move on to the next agenda item that we'll talk about both the public information education priorities that we briefly went over last time. And then I'm waiting for Tim Richards to show up before we talk about the integrated wastewater master plan. I don't think he's on, is he, Peter? I'm not seeing him. What?
No,
No, okay, thanks. So why don't we go ahead, take a 5-minute break now? Is that okay? Okay. We've got a couple people missing, but I wanted to go ahead to the next agenda item 5.3 and talk about whether there are some other ideas to capture on if we are to get a public information officer or whatever title they wind up giving them, what kind of focus areas they'd like. And what I'd like to do, oops, is share my screen. I had this in my, now I've lost it. Pop. Does everybody see that? Nodding heads, okay. This is what I had pulled out last time from the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan, which I swear every other page we put education, education, education as being a need. And I think it sounds like we've got some excellent illustration of that from Kauai. And basically on every topic known to Hawaii County. But these were the ones that had been developed here. And I think we'll talk about a little bit later, the idea of talking about the real costs and littering as another item. When we did the solid waste management plan, we had identified things as being high priority and medium priority. So these were the high ones that we dealt with. Rick Gaffney had passed on, he's still very concerned that we have an easy way for people to find out whether or not their local transfer station is taking what they want to haul over there before they leave home. And I think we still have a challenge there to try to find some ways to do that communication. I also just threw up some ideas on wastewater treatment, but I'd like to capture if anybody else has thought about what areas that they would like to see us focus on. This isn't going to be an order that we give to the DEM, but just to give a flavor for the kinds of things that we think ought to be on the top of the list. So if there's some other items, I'd be more than happy to write them in.
Georgine, would you consider, could you scroll back up to the top of the document? Is that implement a 3-year education, yada, yada, yada? Is that the description from the department?
There's a section in chapter 5 of the plan that talks about do it, don't just do, oh, I have an idea, let's shoot it out. Have a plan that works through over a period of time. We plucked 3 years out of the air, but a thoughtful plan that says, here's what we're going to do first, here's what we're going to do second, just to do that planning around education and make sure you've got the budget to manage it. So there are examples in the plan as well.
May I suggest that we add a couple words besides implement, create and implement, so that they're not expecting somebody else to create a plan and they just send it out, whoever this person is. And could we consider everything after business community about landfill diversion initiatives and opportunities? It feels very specific to only that topic, even though there's a lot more topics on the list. Could we broaden that so it's not so specific? This is your focus and only focus.
You want to put in the R's?
Sure.
Reuse.
Sure.
Reuse is definitely one that we probably didn't hit hard enough in the solid waste management plan, But we did have several recommendations around the reuse centers and other places that point out where, the best way to avoid filling up your landfill is to not generate waste in the first place. And that's a humongous education challenge.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Can I jump in?
Sure, John.
Do you have any way to reach back and look at the first one that we did?
I have it on my shelf back behind me.
You do, the first
Yeah.
one.
That's basically what we did. Well, the 2009.
No, I'm
The
talking,
really first one?
yeah.
I'm not sure if I've got a copy of that, but I could
I
probably
mean,
find
this,
one.
this conversation is deja vu all over again.
Oh, I know.
So, I mean, one of the things that we found were very effective was getting the children involved.
Mm.
I mean, there's nothing like giving a 10-year-old a task,
Mhm.
as you probably well know. That they will hound you to death, right? So we got more cooperation from that group than we did from the parents.
Mm.
And I think to some large extent, that's a holdover. Once embedded, it's in there.
Mhm.
So I still see that in the people that are around from back then who are now adults. And there are
So
particular,
indoctrination of children is an effective.
yeah, it becomes, it is something they can do. And once embedded, it's something they continue to do.
Mhm. No, it's a way of thinking.
Yeah,
It's what Senna was talking about in terms of the compost bins. As soon as you have to do it, you think about it and you say, I don't want to do this anymore. What else can I do to avoid it? So yeah, and it's a way of thinking. So I got it there. Do you want it more than that? Anybody else? Well, I'm going to keep harping on this. So if you've got some other ideas, want to make sure that they get captured on this. And I'm hoping that we've got DEMs listening to us here, but as soon as we feel like we've got the list, a right list, to hand it over to them and say, here, as soon as they hire this person, we'll haul them in and talk to them at our meetings. So there. Any other comments I should capture? I can't see everybody on this view. Any other hands up? I don't know what I've done here. I've lost everybody.
Can you scroll it down a little bit?
Oh,
Please.
let's go down this. Where do you want to go?
Thank you very, very much. This is marvelous.
Well, and I know the Senate has been participating with these EPA discussions. They've got money coming out of their ears with all the money for improvement of waste and water infrastructure. So they're looking at what do you need? What do you need? So EPA is in the process of developing public information documents that could be used by both governments, but also to hand out to the public. Our challenge is tailoring it to this island and what we can do on this island, which isn't going to be the same as the mainland, obviously. But there are some opportunities to learn from others, but having done it when we were trying to put together the initial concepts for the master recycler, which is volunteers from the public helping to be on-site educators. It's a challenge to convert things that were prepared for the mainland to what we can handle here. And it changes all the time too. So, and Senna's running out of spare time to work on things. So anyway, I'm not seeing hands and other contributions. So I'm going to close this item. Quit sharing. Stop share. The next item on the agenda, I'm frustrated with. Trying to see, I don't think Tim Richards has joined us yet, so he had said last time he wanted to participate.
I'm here, Georgie.
Oh, you're here. Where
Yep,
are you? Oh, there
I've been
you are.
listening.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move on to discussion of they drop everything on the floor. The concept of having a master plan. We talked about it a little bit before. And I don't know, Tim, if you want to just in general talk about where you're coming from on the council for the idea, but what we were thinking of doing was put together, we'd like to see these kinds of high level components in the plan. And so I've got an outline that we were going to walk through, but if there's some introductory remarks you'd like to make.
Sure, and I do appreciate the invitation to participate. You touched on the availability of funding for us, and when I say us, I'm talking nationally. When we're looking at our wastewater, and actually all infrastructure, but specifically here, wastewater. And depending whose estimate you want to talk about for the Big Island, this commission knows far better than most, and probably than me, as far as our needs for our wastewater management. Right now on our CIP, I think it's somewhere around $800 million that we need to work on getting to start putting us in the right direction. And I think the only way we're really going to be able to do it is we cannot piecemeal everything together, though I don't think that's been the direction necessarily we've been going. But I think it's easier to get bigger funding and make EPA happier with us if we have a plan, we start going towards it. We have, we've talked about Keaukaha, and the wastewater plant out there and what needs to happen there. If I recall my numbers right, it's about 150, 160 million for the plant upgrade, then another 40 million for the sewering upgrade to make that to a point where we don't have to worry about it, because it is a concern right now. We have issues at Keaukaha and what we're going to go there. We have a problem with Puako, and though there's been initiative to get going and there is some funding, it's really planning money, it's not construction money. And so the concept is to use all this money. I've had this conversation with Ramsey as far as we need a plan, so then we can know what kind of funding we need to start going after and be incremental about it. Obviously, I think we could easily spend $1 billion in our county to go after wastewater, but it needs to be a concerted and orchestrated effort as we start taking things off. Generally, the concept, as I understand, is to fix what we have in place now so it won't come to a crisis, and then we can focus on sewering and developing the wastewater treatments going forward. That will best be orchestrated by having a high-level plan that says we will start attacking these different challenges at these different levels, and this is the kind of funding we're going to need. And that, in my mind, is what we need to start working, because I need to know what I'm funding. And that's through this whole budget cycle, all the departments, I said, if you just said, I want to do this, give me a number so I can start thinking about that in that concept. For this specifically here, wastewater, I think that well articulated and then orchestrated plan is what we need to go forward. And I think this commission, the expertise that sits on this commission is I think second to none when it comes to discussing this. I'm not a wastewater expert by any stretch, but I do know we got some issues. And I see my job is to try and advocate for the funding that we need to take that going forward. So that's my interest in having this discussion and figuring out what direction we need to do and then how do I advocate for that funding. Reality, it's going to be federal because I don't see any other way to take us to where we need to go without a whole bunch of federal support. So that's what my thoughts are. Back at you, Georgina.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'm going to do is try again in a not too sloppy way to share my screen and the proposal that I had. Do people see this? Oops, screen.
No, not yet.
Okay, what did I not push right? Share screen. All right, this one. Now you see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. all these things to push. Okay, so what Rick and I had started with was the idea of, kind of a pyramid concept of you start with what's your vision. You're looking at something that's an integrated plan that isn't just a staple of individual facility plans, but it's got ties back to what are we trying to accomplish here at different levels. So we were looking at other county plans across the nation to see if there were some outlines. So kind of put together this float. These were just kind of starting places, not meant to be the words that get accepted, but to have a vision statement. Last meeting, Ramsey talked about having some visioning work that they've been doing in DEM on what are they all about. This is what was captured in the minutes. But my impression, and Ramsey, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are still having that dialogue within the group, but we figured that EMC should throw in our 2 cents as well. And when I talk vision, I talk pretty dang high. So I think you're a little bit closer into the landfills and wastewater treatment ponds than we are, but your focus had been on energy and agricultural sustainability and focusing on materials recovery, which is certainly what we've been talking about and have sent letters into council as well, that think about it as resource management, not as waste treatment. But you'd have a vision statement that every program should be able to directly tie back to. Lay out some guiding principles. I think a lot of what Ramsey had talked about last time, there were a lot of personnel and how they treat each other in the department. That's really important for you guys, and certainly don't want to denigrate that. But we were looking at more the issue of directly on a wastewater management plan. I personally am a life cycle thinker, so I some sort of language like that would be cool in my mind. Again, the resource management versus waste management, we can't over-engineer. We can't afford it, no matter how much money gets thrown at it, especially when it's one-time money. That it has to be sustainable. It has to deal with the communities we both have right now and we expect. I do listen to you, John, when you're talking about Puna is exploding. We've got to be able to provide necessary services. Another one I think is important is that we're flexible in new technologies. The world is not standing still. There are new things being developed, and there is definitely a tendency, I think, in any bureaucracy to stick with what the known is and tried and true. And I don't think that's going to get us there. So I would like to see flexibility to look in and explore new technologies, not spend a whole buckets of money on it, but at least to look at it. And that there's this commitment to continuous improvement. You don't build the plant and 50 years later, get out the duct tape. You're looking at how are you going to continuously improve things, and then you're working with everybody, the public and private, to get yourself there. Ramsey said a lot of the same kinds of words in his statement. And again, when that gets more firm, certainly like to add that in. But the next thing is, okay, you got this vision, you got these principles, now what? It's talking about, call it goals, call it strategies, whatever term of art you like, but basically looking at what do we got? Where is the population going? How well are we doing in training it all together? One of, I think, our biggest challenges is jurisdiction issues, but so, and then looking at how are we going to meet today and tomorrow's needs, and some of the factors being financial health, regulatory compliance, which is a shifting standard as well, capacity and condition assessment, a lot of which has been done. Looking at alternatives, there's the flexibility idea that you're looking at different things. And then the plan, looking right now, fix all the broken stuff. And then a 5, 10, 15 year, and maybe you go even longer than that, but an improvement plan that you are planning for the future and funding for the future, which is the next section. And then just some of the stuff that bogs us down and presents opportunities. And then as the appendix, the individual plants and facilities and all the gory planning that needs to be there. Tim had mentioned to us before that he really likes the way transportation has put together their master plan on how they're going to set up hubs and vehicles, and they kind of lay it out in a nice evaluate what we've got and where we're going to go and how it's going to change and why we're doing what we're doing. So they have a nice model that we tried to develop this on. But at this point, it's okay, gang, what do you think? How would you change it? What should we provide as a recommendation, not dictation, on guidance of what EMC would like? So floor is open. And you can jump in too, Tim.
This is
Thanks,
Commissioner.
Christine. I want to listen though.
Okay,
First.
so I hear Lee McIntosh. I can't see everybody. You.
This is Commissioner McIntosh. I was just thinking for the 5, 10, 15 year plan, you should figure out approximately how long facilities are planned to last or exist and make that your plan period. So if you're supposed to last 50 years, then that should be how long you plan, because you're either going to have to replace it or maintain it or something. So you need to include that in the plan. That's part of the problem with Big Island. We build it, we forget about it.
Where what I say, we got a chunk of money and we spent it and then move on, because who knows if any more money is ever going to show up. And we can't do that. We need to figure out, okay, one portion of our effort has got to be continually looking for the money. And I think Ramsey has talked about, we need to have more sewer hookups so they can get more fees, more customers to help support the facilities we have. It's not the, build it and they will come field of dreams. It's figure out how you're going to sustainably manage the facilities we have. It's a good point, Lee. Anybody else?
Well,
Yeah, I'd like to add something. I think it's important that at some place in this planning process, we need to create a priorities list. There are some obvious priority areas that need to be taken care of sooner rather than later because their impact on the environment is, I think, critical to the future of the island. Pu'oko is a good example. Pu'oko has the oldest reef on the island, and it has been maximally impacted by the presence of nearshore cesspools.
mhm.
So I'm not exactly sure where in this plan outline that we have included. It may be in the appendices, but I think we need to say that certain areas are, Keikaha is an obvious one. The Kealakekee wastewater treatment plant R1 is an obvious one. Pu'oko is an obvious one. There are others. And I think first shot planning in Puna would be another priority. Implementation is going to be probably a lot further out. John, I hate to say that, but I think that's a reality. But if we aren't planning something for Puna's future, it's never going to be financed. So, but anyway, I just want to make the point that I think we're at the point of extremis in so many places on this island that we need to begin to prioritize those so that the department and the council have some direction.
Well, I think Ramsey has, they did an assessment of failure of each facility. So I think there are ways into that. I know Ramsey, if you want to comment.
Yes, yeah, aloha, Council Member Richards and Georgianne, you're right. You hit it right on. We got so many balls in the air currently as we negotiate with EBA on possible, it could be a consent decree or it could be AOC, so countywide. So that priority list will be pretty much addressed and driven by EBA as well and the Department of Health. So as we negotiating these priorities with them, that'll give us the final priority list moving forward. Pretty much we had shared our priority list in prior council meetings. So we had identified projects and we did a condition assessment analysis for the waste treatment plan. So currently we targeting the priority of our current system because we need to stop the bleeding somehow prior to start looking into sewer collection expansion and what have you. So our main goal initially is to stop the bleeding, and so we can start focusing on expansion and customer base and what have you. So that is as we move forward with EPA on that countywide priority and finance negotiation with them. That will give us technically the roadmap, as I shared with you in the last meeting. We had done our mission, vision, and objectives and goals, and how we're going to tackle all of these objectives to, as was shared with you. So the idea is definitely we asked for positions. Council member Richards is very supportive of the staffing level that we need to have. And I do appreciate his continuous support on making sure that we get the right staffing to deliver on these objectives that we set forward to achieve the 15, 20 years planning of getting out of that reactive maintenance rather than proactive maintenance. So that's also being rolled in as we move forward. I'm still working with our finance department, trying some of the positions we asked for. We got some position assigned, some of the positions were not approved. So I'm trying to see what we could do at least to get some priority position approved prior to this budget hearing. And I'll definitely keep you updated and posted on that as well. So yeah, there's a lot going with the master plan, integrated waste management plan as a whole. So we had secured funding for the Puna area and also Polco community. Councilmember Richards and I spoke, and with Councilmember Heather Campbell as well, and David Tarnas, on trying to how we could take that funding we got from the state with a matching fund from the county and trying to create a more west side comprehensive waste treatment master plan. So at least it looks at how we're going to connect some of the communities. We're in the process of selecting a consultant as we speak. So definitely we need to probably create a task force, at least to initially be a part of that scope of service that we're going to try to hand to the consultant. So we make sure that at least the community and us on the same track moving forward. So hopefully that adds up, can I give you an indication where we're going. So in addition to that, we created a master plan once the priority projects are identified. So we're going to have a master schedule. The master schedule is going to identify all the tasks and milestones for each and individual projects from A to Z, from conception to completion. So we're going to have a major master schedule. It could be an inch thick, but it's going to have all these priority listing with all the milestones. So at least once it's assigned, hopefully it doesn't fall through the cracks, especially if we're going to end up getting some type of consent decree. So that way, at least somebody will continue keeping an eye on the schedule. As we talking more about it with EPA, maybe it's too late for this year, but next year, or maybe mid-year, I may go before council and ask to include capital improvement project manager position. And it create a section of, for employees just to keep an eye on all these now, $800 million or $1 billion projects, so they don't fall through the crack, because we cannot afford delays. We cannot afford anything falling through the crack, because eventually we'll gonna be hit with a major violation from EPA if we do so. So once that roadmap is created, hopefully we'll have a structure to make sure it doesn't fall through the cracks, and somebody needs to follow through with it to the end, even beyond this administration. So our look at it, at least for the next 20 years, if we could be able to successfully negotiate stretching these projects due to the financial constraint with EPA up to that many years moving forward. Georgianne, just to catch up with some of the presentation that came out with Senna, definitely one of our goal as far as the compost is the house composting definitely is an option. So we're doing the food organic study currently to figure out how much we have on the island. So we're gonna come back. Hopefully Senna will we'll collect, so, not only one option, multiple, we're gonna look at decentralized composting as well. So all these options will be looked at just from an in-house point of view. So when we come back to you guys, at least you have more than one option to look at. So, as we move forward with any selection, at least we looked at multiple options, not just one.
No, I
And
don't
that's-
think any of us think there's a single option that'll work. It is a system. Kind of what Jennifer Navarro said, you need to look at all the different ways that we work together to meet our goals. And by the same token, that's what we're wanting to see for a master plan. Is we've got all these pieces, and there isn't one plug-in facility that works for every place on this island. And just like the variety that you're setting up as a solution for Nahalehu and Pahala, that it's piecing it together so holistically the thing works and gets you further toward your system. So it sounds like you're doing that kind of thing. I think the purpose of us wanting to lay this out is just make sure these components are in your plan somewhere, somehow, and that you're thinking of it, even though you're so buried in the minutia that you've got to get through, and EPA beating you up every day, that there is a larger plan and vision on where you're going to go, and you're constantly reevaluating, are we heading in the right direction, or are we just digging a deeper hole for ourselves? And I personally would support the idea, go get yourself a project manager. All he does is Gantt charts, knows where things are, gives you the warning, saying, you guys are 2 weeks behind here, jump to it. He's not an expert in the subject, but it's amazing how they keep you on track. It's great.
Yeah, I've been there, done that, and believe it or not, it's very, very helpful to have just that individual, that section, just to keep an eye on progress, because I think Lee mentioned it. Sometimes you start a project and, you find out 20 years later that was never completed. I'll give you a good example, the Halo treatment plant, because we're in the process of design. We're about at the 30% design process. And we just found out we don't even own the property, because back when they built it, somebody dropped the ball on chasing that executive order to secure that property. So now we're trying to go back. So if that was under the Gantt chart and a schedule, maybe somebody could have been held accountable. Accountability is very important, just to make sure that we will continue to deliver on the tasks they've been assigned to deliver on. So yeah, that's I gotta push that position forward. It may be too late for this year, I don't know, but I think definitely as we negotiate with EPA, that will give them the level of comfort as well, because now we fully committed, and we're not gonna fall behind anymore. That's some of the stuff. The other one, you bring the Y connection. The reason they called it a Y, because it's a Y. It's the shape of Hawaii. So when they pronounce it, when you spell it out, you just pronounce it as Y, W-Y-E. And the intent for that Y is to give you a smoother connection to a house or to a unit, to a building. So as these plumbers comes in, do the connection, definitely don't use a T, use a Y, because it's easier to smooth or fish the line through if you have sewer clogging. So, and that's where the Y came from, for plumbers to understand. Don't use a T or any other connection or 90-degree connection. Go get a Y and connect a house. So it's actually the letter Y, because it looks like the letter Y for the angle that it's designed for. So, and that's why they call it Y connection.
Okay, I heard a female voice, but does anybody have more comments, elements that they think are critical to be in a master plan?
Well, I mean, you, John, here. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, and Puna remains the gorilla in the closet with the 80,000 plus TMKs that are rapidly being built upon. I mean, I think you've been out there and you're seeing what's going on. And I mean, I've seen this before. I grew up in Los Angeles in the 60s, and I saw the build out of Los Angeles. And this is all too familiar. And we don't have, to say that our infrastructure to support this is inadequate is a massive understatement. The highways are backed up morning, noon, and night. All of these private roads are falling rapidly into disrepair with no structure for financing their repair. And that becomes a public safety issue, and where that's going to fall out, I haven't got a clue.
That's why you're there,
And
John.
I'm
Keep
hoping that the EPA,
advocating for your district.
well, I'm just stating what is.
No, I know, and
It
it's why
isn't-
we tried to get in current and projected.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't, and I mean, I wish everybody'd go home. Personally, I was happy with the way it was, but I mean, that isn't going to happen. If I could make it all go away, I would, but
Until there's a next lava eruption.
Yeah, Paul's working on that,
I
John.
mean, that's our saving grace. You know, you got to wait for it to cool
Scare
down.
everybody away.
Well, no, it doesn't. It just is you have to wait for it to cool down before you can build on it. You know, it just slows you down a little bit. I mean, think about this. The property you bought now has an unobstructed ocean view. Really?
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's actually more, once it cools down, once you can walk on it, hey, it's worth more than it was before.
Yeah. John's right though, because I
Okay,
don't, I mean,
time out,
John and
guys.
I just want to second what John's saying though, because Puna really gets left in the dark, you know, and I think, I mean, all joking aside, a lot of times because of the lava, because it's just not, you know, I think we're just kind of seen as like the bad kid on the island. And I don't know how many of you have been to Puna recently, but there really is an unprecedented building happening. I mean, there's just bulldozers everywhere, you know, so there's more and more houses going up. And so we really are in need of infrastructure. I mean, including, you know, trash and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, the transfer stations are just overwhelmed. I mean,
Well,
I'm
I
sure
wonder, and maybe if Tim's still online, you know, it's got to be bigger than just environmental issues. I mean, it's everything issues.
Oh,
that you've
yeah.
got this exploding population. I'm not sure where or who, or if it's every committee that you've got in the council to deal with an exploding population area.
Well, I mean,
Right, exactly. We have the
I-
cheapest land on the island. So that's another thing to, you know, that needs to be taken into consideration. That's why so much of the development is happening here in Puna, is because you can't touch land up in North Kohala. But in Puna, it's, you know, it's super cheap. So anybody can build, and, you know, it's really going to be a problem in the near future. I mean, it
Well,
already is a problem.
it is a problem.
Councilman Richards, point us maybe in a direction or how it fits in with the bigger picture.
Well, you know, like I said, I appreciate the invitation on the conversation because this is a huge issue for us. So is just solid waste.
Mhm.
So is energy. So is housing. And what are we going to do about it? That's the bigger question coming before us. The reason I like the master plan, and Georgine, you brought up the mass transit master plan. What we did with that, when I first joined council 5.5 years ago, that was just coming out. At the time, the annual budget for mass transit was about $10 million. And this next year, it's proposed at $30 million. Now, I am not one to spend money. I have to have value for it. Everyone knows I'm a fiscal conservative. That doesn't mean I don't spend money. It means I want value for the money that we spend. And I'm very supportive of the mass transit because we have a plan going forward and we can articulate what's going to happen. That's why I've been a big proponent for this. And I appreciate Ramsey's comments because a lot of what I'm discussing has been discussed with Ramsey, and it's gelling my mind. We're not experts on wastewater. There's no way anybody on the council is an expert. However, our job is to seek the solution through the funding side. And that's where a group like yours comes in place. And that's why we have someone like Ramsey in place to tell us what we need to get done. I always talk about this. I was born here in the county and the population has tripled since I was born. When you have a small population, you can get away with a lot of things because the sheer mass of the land itself can dwarf our solid waste problems, our wastewater problems, all that. But as we start to grow, okay, now we have to grow up and we have to start paying attention to this. You know, I'm listening very carefully about Puna. I agree. Puna, we have to do something, but it's going to take an investment of infrastructure. And one of the things that Ramsey has been a big proponent of, and I agree with him, is we have to get our funding to a place where it is maintaining what we have. And Georgine, you made the comment, we build it and forget it. And this is not unique to environmental management or wastewater at all. We're seeing the same problem with our roads, our bridges, our water, our potable water infrastructure is in decent shape. However, we're lagging as far as getting more potable water, which is why we don't have the water meters that we need. And so we really need a master plan for all of this stuff as we're growing up. And we're kind of tipping over, meaning we're crossing a threshold, I should say. We're going from a little rural county to a big rural county now, meaning now we have the big boy, big challenges that population centers start developing. So how do we go forward with this? We're going to need grant money for the capital growth, but we also have to build in the financing to maintain and repair and build for the future and replace in building for the future. And we talk about Puna, and this goes back to when Jen Ruggles was on it. I told her I would support a improvement district, but that means taxes are going to have to go up if we're going to do that in the Puna district. And maybe that's what we need to do if we're going to build the infrastructure. The county is not flush with cash because we're too big. And our, I think I did the demographics of it. Oahu had, I need to go back and do these again, but 1,600 people per acre, and the Big Island had like 20 people per acre. That just shows you the difference in taxing and capability and what that'll bring us from a tax structure. So how do we go forward? The only way we can do that is to go incrementally and take case by case by case. Each of the areas of concern, and this area, we're talking about environmental management, solid waste and wastewater. Okay, we need to start taking a hard swing at how we're going to solve that. To me, and as Ramsey pointed out, we have funding for a wastewater master plan west side. Some of that we can use the funding that came out for Pool Cove. But when the community of Pool Cove is saying, well, we need to focus on Pool Cove, I said, no, I think that's a bad way to spend public money. We need to look at the big picture for West Side. And we have to start taking this off at bites that we can actually accomplish something. So I like the conversation of what we're going. And what I need from you, or what we as council needs from environmental management and also the commission, is give us a roadmap, give us a plan, give us a financial, so these are allergies, by the way, this isn't COVID. We need a financial roadmap to go forward, because I think, and Ramsey can back me up on this, if we have a plan to go forward, I think the EPA is going to be far more accommodating to us as we go forward, because they look, this is the plan. This is our plan for seeking funding. This is the plan to take this from this year to 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever the case may be. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to get in a situation where we're saying, well, we don't know what to do, so we're doing nothing. And that's, we're almost got to a point, and this is this is not saying anything about environmental management at this point. This is what we've worked ourselves into. We evaluated so much for so long that we never actually started, and we got to get things started. So that's what I'm looking for from this group. And I'm very supportive of what Ramsey said about getting the staffing correct for environmental management, so we can start moving the agenda forward and focus on the high priority issues, find the funding for that. I think we're going to have probably the best shot at getting some funding, big funding for us within the next year or two. And that's what my desire is for this county, is to find that capital improvement, to start taking a big swing at some of these problems. But it's got to start with a plan so we can kind of track it from there.
Thank you. Going back to this document, and we'll keep refining it if you want. Are there any other concepts you want to make sure get captured?
Well, before we get away from the money part,
Mhm.
you know that the sale prices on the land out in Puna have more than tripled. The lot in Nanavali that you got for $3,500 5 years ago is now $16,000. And the people that are buying them up don't even blink. I mean, that's lunch money. And that's pretty much across the board what I see going on. So as a funding issue from the property tax rolls, that's an upside. It's a downside for the people who live there, because they don't and haven't had that kind of income in the past. So we're going to have to be looking to see how we're going to manipulate that. But there definitely is going to be a far more substantial financial base there to draw from than there has been at any time that I've been here.
Okay. Anybody else? We're running out of time. I want to move to get us a little bit out of agenda order. Tim.
Georgine, yeah, apparently my
Oh, I'm
video.
sorry. I was looking at Lee and I said your name, but yeah, if I can let Tim Richards make a comment quick. Go.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation for this conversation. And I hope, Georgine, this puts something in context of what will help me to move this agenda forward. I have to step off because I got to get to another meeting. But I'm excited to work for it. I'm very supportive of some of the initiatives you guys have started, as well as what Ramsey has. But I need a roadmap so I know what I'm arguing, not necessarily to the detail, but I need a ballpark so I know what we're trying to get done with that priority in line. And that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
All right.
Lee McIntosh, you had a comment?
Okay, thanks so much. I got to step
Thanks
off.
a lot, Tim, for joining us.
Okay, we'll catch you guys later. Aloha.
Thank you, Tim.
I was going to say, since we've been talking so much about Puna, that actually buildings all across the island, but anyways, I was thinking about the I don't know what you call this, the master plan, that you need to put somewhere in there about, you need to be mindful about the volcano eruptions, because you don't want to put a $50-80 million facility in Puna and have it rolled over in lava, and that's the end of it. So that might be another reason why there's resistance to building infrastructure in Puna because of the lava flow. I know it's not an excuse, but it's something they probably keep in their back of the mind when they're making decisions.
It is a unique issue for this island, and it's got to be accounted for. Contingency planning at a minimum.
Georgine, maybe you could add to the bottom. I think there was a space for challenges and opportunities and challenges. Maybe there could be the umbrella of environmental challenges or natural disaster type, you know.
Yeah, we got climate change, we got
Mhm.
volcanoes, throw in a hurricane or two. Oh, no.
Or just a
Tsunamis.
fashion earthquake.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
I found it. Okay, anything else? I'll take another whack at writing up these thoughts, try to pull out some of the things you guys have said. And we'll talk about it again and share it with DEM. And Ramsey, if you've got anything at some right point to share with us, we appreciate it. Any last closing comments? I'm going to quit sharing my screen. Okay. All right, back to everybody. Okay, we need to move now to deal with our hearing. And so I'm going to defer maybe to later, but I don't believe we'll get to it. Item 5.5, the areas for code changes. We may, after we close out item 6, go back to this issue if we can. But I think now is the time to move to the continued proceedings regarding Kayala Partners LLC's appeal of the director's decision. We are at the stage now where we need to prepare a written findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order that would be published to memorialize our decision from our last meeting for the hearing. And then the next step is up to DEM if they want to appeal our decision. So we have, do we have everybody here? Is Cody? There she is.
Good morning.
Hi. So I've been advised to go ahead and give a really short 2-minute type comment from each of the parties, if you would like, on the proposed findings, etc., that we could make. They are in the file that's been put for this record. And the only people who can vote on the written decision are the ones who are present for the hearing. So in this case, John Olson can go feed his parking meter if he wants to. He is recused from the meeting, and I think all the other commissioners are eligible to vote on that position paper. So I saw, there you are, Richie. If appellant would like to make a brief comment about your proposed findings, go ahead now. That's Richie Henderson.
Sure. Chairman Adams, I've seen 3 findings of facts, conclusions of law, and orders. And I'm kind of a little not understanding a lot of them. And I don't know what we have to do and what the process is for coming to a complete agreement on it. So if you would enlighten me on what we have to do right now, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, fair enough. I would ask Sinclair Salas Ferguson, who is the EMC counsel, to maybe review what we're doing here right now.
So the commission has made its decision at the last meeting. So the meeting today is to adopt formally the findings of facts, the conclusions of law and order. So Richie, you were provided an opportunity to submit proposed findings of facts, conclusions of law and order. So was the appellee, which all parties have. The commission has also submitted findings of facts, conclusions of the law and order. So the commission will, today what I see happening is somebody will make a motion to adopt one of the submissions. There'll be a second, there'll be discussion to either amend certain portions of the submission or not, or accept it as is, and then there'll be a vote. If there's somebody wants to change the order, they can amend the motion. So Richie, right now, Chair has given you an opportunity to make any final comments on how you would like the findings of facts, conclusions of law and order to appear and be adopted by the board. So by my count, you have, I can start a clock for 2 minutes if you want, Georgine.
No, okay, I understand. So I'm just basically commenting on the overall process. That's correct?
Yeah, we're not redoing the decision.
Right,
We're
okay.
just trying to figure out how do we want to write it up.
Yeah, more specifically, Richie, specific to the findings of facts, conclusions of law. Like if you have an issue with any of those things, now's your time. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start 2 minutes right now. So you can go ahead.
Okay, I think that the commission needs to understand that there's 2 appeals, and under which appeal are we using? I think that's question number 1 that's got to get squared away in all of these. And the second, so it's either going to be the one of October 12th or the one of October 19th. So that's got to get resolved. I think that we have to make clear that the property has a residence and has a separate annex building that has the water heater that supplied hot water to the building. It was not a residence in itself. And I see that it's been cited as a residence in itself. I'd say that there's an error in both appeals we sent in were accompanied by the payment required for that. And so I think that needs to be cleared up. And I'd say that when we come down to the conclusion,
30 seconds.
It does not mention the amount of the charge or what it's changing it from to. So I think that that needs to get cleared up in the decision in order. Thanks.
I would like, if it's okay with you, Sinclair, to address that issue of the money. As we were advised, as I recall at the last hearing, the EMC, the Environmental Management Commission, is not in the business of deciding any refund. We are simply saying whether or not that building is in violation, or the decision that the director made about charging that building, whether that was right or wrong. And we decided that he shouldn't have charged you. And the money, Sinclair, I'm not sure where he goes to deal with that.
Is there a question,
Can
Gertrude?
Yes, question is for the issue of the money that he was requesting for past payment, you had advised us that that's not really our jurisdiction, if you will. But I don't know whose it is.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I told you guys this in executive session, but and I'm not sure, maybe I said it in open session too, but as we all know, the commission can hear appeals from decisions when the appeal is filed within 30 days of that decision from the director. So the issue that the body had jurisdiction to decide was whether or not the director's decision to charge that structure as an unoccupied unit was good or not. And the commission found that commission disagreed with the director. So that was the issue on appeal, and that's the issue that will be decided in the findings of facts, conclusions of law and order. And so the department can deal with that however they want going forward. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions on that?
Were there comments from the DEM attorneys on that?
Yeah, I just real quick. I think Richie and Richie, you can let me know if Mr. Henderson, sorry, if you if this is what you're saying, and basically you wanted to say the specific number the bill will have, or like instead of just saying from 2 units to 1 unit, were you asking basically to put what the actual bill will be going forward? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so I mean, the decision and order is kind of vague. I mean, I don't know what it's really saying there. You know,
Just a clarification of what that's going to be is what
Yeah,
you
is it
you're
gonna
recommending
be-
to the commission. Yeah. Okay.
one service, or is, you know, changed from 2 billing services to 1 billing service. It's just kind of, it's not making
Well,
any sense.
Richie, let me just tell you, so from the facts and findings and conclusions that I saw, it's saying that the decision was, or the decision that the commission made at the last hearing was that that decision was in error to charge for 2. So translated, the department will be charging from 1 for 1 going forward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay, that's.
And they
what-
will decide, they will tell you what the price is for 1 unit. And I mean, you can look at your bill.
No,
And
no, that's, I'm just talking about the units and making that clear there. And then Sinclair, is that gonna be, when is that gonna be effective?
So Richie, you can follow up with DEM, and we'd like to just move this along. You can call DEM after this and ask them when
Okay,
it'll
that
be
doesn't
effective.
have to be in what we're doing right now, is what you're saying?
No, but actually, that is a point that I can advise the commission if they want to do an executive session, but that is a good point. I think it would be effective at the time of your appeal. So that decision, so going back to when you filed the appeal, be effective from then.
Yeah, I just, those are some of the questions my dad had. He couldn't be here today, but I just wanted to make sure that I got them brought up. Thanks, Sinclair. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So now for the appellee, whether Cody or Malia.
Yeah, I'll start. Cody, you can jump in if you have anything. I'll try and be quick. Just to kind of address a couple more of Mr. Henderson's things. In our proposed findings of fact, which I recommend the commission adopt, because I think one of the things that the circuit court looks at is they're looking for the commission to show their work and how they got to where they got. So that's what I tried to lay out for you guys, is just the basic facts that are needed for the court to understand if this is to be appealed, how you guys got to where you got. And then Mr. Henderson mentioned about the residential structures. I included residential structures because it's not a commercial structure. So it's not saying that, you know, it's not labeling this detached unit as another residence, or I would have said second single family dwelling or Ohana unit as the definition. So I just wanted to clarify that too, that it's basically, it's a residential structure. It's not a commercial structure, correct? And so other than that, I mean, I think that I, you know, tried to lay them out as simply as possible and capture what the commission held. there's a couple typos at the end. I just wanted to point out for ours, if you guys do choose to adopt it, the very last paragraph has a was is, and it should just be a is reversed. And I also would change, there's a couple references to appellee's decision in the conclusions of law, which to just make it less confusing for you and the court, I would say director's decision instead, just to make it really clear instead of, appellee, appellant. So those are the only two suggestions I would have for amendments if you guys were going to adopt the ones that we're presenting. And Cody, if you have anything else to add, please feel free.
I do. Good morning, everybody. Deputy Corporation Counsel Cody Friends on behalf of Director Mansour, who is also present. I would, this will be appealed. So your findings of fact, conclusions of law, decision and order are very relevant. And I want to make sure that whatever you adopt.
Sorry, Cody, to interrupt. Georgine, that's 2 minutes. If you want to give her more time, it's up to you.
You can have more minutes, 2 more minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I want to just caution you to adopt only what the board actually found. I would note that appellant's proposed findings include some additional information and commentary, things that are maybe a part of the arguments, but not that this board actually found. So I caution you as to adopting those because that would be error on appeal. So just following like Malia and I did in drafting the facts and the conclusions for you, whether we agree or not, right? Those are the findings that this board made. So to track exactly what you found and how you got there as to your conclusions is all that's being laid out by the director's proposed findings. So I would ask that you adopt those solely so that we can track what was found by this board, since that's what's relevant. And that's all I have for you. Thank you, Georgine.
Thank you. Okay. Sinclair, I had asked you the question before we got here, and I don't know if we need to go to executive session or if you want to describe what you think that we need to put in this findings document. Specifically, a laundry list of all the facts.
So, you guys made the decision. I think this would be a good time if the board wants to have legal questions pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities concerning this appeal. Now would be a good time to go and answer these questions. If anyone wants to make that motion, if you want to do that.
In executive session?
Yeah.
Would anybody, or will you let me make that motion?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but I'll just state the motion and then somebody can say it.
Elise nodding that she'd be.
Okay, so Elise, if you want to make a motion to consult with the board's attorney on questions pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities under HRS section 92-5-4, the topic being the adoption of the findings of facts, conclusions of law and order pertaining to the appeal submitted by Kai Ala Partners LLC.
I move that we go into executive session based on what Sinclair just said in his last sentence.
I
second the motion.
Rick, Melissa, whoever got in first. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, I will ask, I don't know, however you do that, Peter, to stop recording.
Georgine, one last thing before we go in exec, you need to ask everybody if they're alone in their room.
Okay, we are back in open session discussing the EMC's write-up of the findings of fact, conclusions of law and order. Is there a motion to approve any of the 3 drafts that we have in our record?
This is Commissioner Robinson. I move that we adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law document as drafted by the Environmental Management Commission.
I second the
have
motion.
second? And Rick Gaffney seconds. Discussion.
Yes.
Do you want me to put the document back up as a share?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me see if I can do that again, right? Sure. Okay, this is a document. It was written as a draft by Sinclair South Ferguson for us to consider. So we're discussing the words that are written here. And
Georgine, seriously, for the life of me, I don't see that in my email.
there's, wait, you need to go to the Hawaii County file, whatever the heck it's called.
It's Peter Sir included it in the agenda. There was a link in the agenda that he sent to us.
On the, okay, in our agenda, okay.
So
I'll just go ahead and say that I think a material fact for me was that the auxiliary building was never used, it was never inhabited, and nor was it ever intended to be a residential structure. I think that is material to the decision.
And I disagree. So there. And Elise, I saw you nodding your head.
I think that's worth adding into the document.
And
Perhaps
the
under
basis,
bullet 3.
the basis for that is testimony provided by the Hendersons or Richie Henderson.
Yes, as part of the, sorry, I was trying to move your screen and I realized it wasn't mine, so I can't move it. It's on number
Where do you want
3.
me to move it?
I think that fact can follow bullet point 3 or come before it. As a result, it's not an unoccupied unit.
Well, item 3, findings of facts as appellant Henderson's maintain that the structure appellee determined to be unoccupied was not an unoccupied unit. So do we want to explain what we mean by unoccupied unit, or?
I think actually that's where we can add these comments.
You could say something like,
It's not
you
never
know,
intended to be, but do you want?
right, or something like was not an unoccupied unit, meaning that the unit was not ever used as a residence, something like that. Because I do think that's an important fact. Nobody ever lived in that unit. Most likely nobody ever will live in that unit. It's just a detached annexed building.
I'm sorry, but you guys never made that finding at the last hearing, so I object to adding findings of fact that were not a party, that were not a part of your conversation or dialogue. That would be inappropriate.
I definitely remember bringing it up. I mean, I'd have to look at the minutes, but I do remember saying something like that in the meeting.
Yeah, it was discussed quite a lot as to whether or not it was or was not a residential unit.
That's what it all comes down to.
I mean, I don't think we need to explain to a judge that a definition is subordinate to the law itself. It doesn't stand alone. And so we were looking at the code and we were trying to determine whether it was in fact a residential unit and an unoccupied residential unit. And it is, and that was key. That's the crux of the whole thing. We determined it was our opinion that it was not a residential unit, and that was supported by the fact that it had never been constructed with the intention to be a residential unit, or was it ever used as a residential unit?
So Sinclair here, maybe you want to put something, appellant maintained that the unit was not a residential unit. Would that satisfy everybody?
appellant maintained it and the commission agreed.
That wasn't in the motion, though.
Yeah, we've
No,
got to
no,
stick with what we motioned.
all we voted on was, whether or not there were 3 criteria, or 4 criteria, right? And we agreed that that the ruling was inappropriate for those 2 reasons. Now we're asking for a
No,
finding of fact.
D, let me just tell you, we all reviewed what happened at the motion that was made at the last meeting controls the commission's decision. And the motion was based off the fact that the unit does not receive a water bill. And so that's what we're stuck with. If you want to add something that the appellant maintained that the unit was not a residential unit, that's fine, legally.
Thank you, Sinclair.
That's fine with me.
So I'd like to, can I say something?
Sure, Rick Gaffney?
Yeah, I'd like to point out that the information with regard to what the unit was used for was also provided to us by the county inspector, who provided us with photographs of the interior of this unit. And the photographs clearly indicated that it wasn't a residential unit, to me anyway. So I think it's more than just the appellant that maintained it. I think that the county inspector also suggested that it wasn't a residential or an technically unoccupied unit.
So let me just clarify, that's my apologies if I've confused things. What Sinclair has tried to articulate, my objection is that none of that's relevant given the motion that this board made at the last hearing, which is what you're stuck to, right? We're within the 4 corners of the motion that you guys made and then seconded and approved. That's what you're stuck with. It was very limited, and that's what we'll be appealing, which is why how you articulate that is so important. You can't add things in now that weren't a part of your motion. So I object respectfully, Mr. Commissioner Gaffney, because that's outside of the motion that was made and approved.
I'm confused by something. I'm confused by the fact that we are having to hash out the language of this with the county council. Why were we not allowed to review this and make alterations?
That's what,
because no, but you're presenting it as it's already approved by us. And
no one is, you guys.
I don't agree with how this was drafted at all.
D, I don't know how many times I got to tell you this, but right now is your time to make your objection. So you guys made a decision at the last hearing, right? Your decision was that it doesn't receive a water bill, so it's clearly erroneous and violation of the law. Your decision was not that it's not a residential unit, therefore it's not an unoccupied unit. The motion was it doesn't receive a water bill. So these findings of facts and conclusions of law reflect the decision that was made at the last hearing. You don't get to come in now and make different reasons for making a decision. Your decision was it doesn't receive a water bill. That's why it's clearly erroneous in violation of law. So that's what this order is going to communicate to the parties and to the court if it gets appealed. So that's why I'm advising that we stick to that decision that was made on April 27th and not try to go and make all kinds of new findings of facts that don't underpin the decision. The decision is not underpinned by a fact whether or not it was residential or not. So we don't want to confuse everybody. We want to stick to what was decided and be very clear and concise about that. So, and this is my advice, you guys can do whatever you want to do. But to find a middle ground, if you guys want to put that in there, that the appellant maintained that the unit was not a residential unit, that's fine. But we cannot say that that is the reason the commission made the decision it made on April 27th, because that's not accurate.
Okay, I would, on item number 3, I think that appellant maintained can be struck from that statement. You can just start the statement with the structure appellee determined to be an unoccupied was not an occupied unit.
I object. That's not what was found by this board.
I don't understand the point of saying appellant maintained.
Because you didn't make that finding, Commissioner Fulton, the board, the commission didn't. So it's almost like we're giving you that carrot, right? You didn't make the finding last time, but you guys want it there. I object to it being there, but if you want to say appellant maintained, that's like saying Mr. Henderson maintained it, you didn't find it. So, I mean,
I
if you want to do that,
disagree.
that's fine.
This is supposed to be a finding of facts.
Correct, but you
So
didn't
when
make
you
that.
say appellant maintained, well, when somebody maintains something, it could be true or it could be false.
That's
So
correct.
it's not relevant to fact.
I
This is
agree.
supposed to be a statement of facts, or am I?
I
mistaken?
agree.
It's
So it should
supposed to
be
be a
struck.
statement of facts. Therefore, appellant maintain casts doubt all over again, and I'd like
It
to have
does.
that language struck. We're
It
talking
wouldn't
about
otherwise be appropriate for that, this commission made that finding though, Ms. Fulton. I apologize. It is what it is.
Georgine, how about moving that or residential to the end of the sentence was not an unoccupied unit or residential unit?
That, again, that wasn't found. I apologize.
I'd like the commission, I'd like to make the motion that
You can revise the motion. Although I think we have at least one more correction that I'm
Yeah,
aware of.
Why don't you
Um,
guys do all the corrections and then at the end do a motion for the, because there's a date issue, right? It's not April 20th, it's 27th. There's a few modifications.
I think we should take each item individually, Sinclair, with all due respect.
I think this
We're not
document,
gonna have a whole pile of motions back and forth correcting every individual thing.
Why don't we
So
start out and see if there's a pile of motions or not, Ms. Chair Georgine?
okay, well, we've got at least one more change that I will note, and others. It was the 27th and not the 20th when that meeting was held. Melissa, you have your hand up.
I would like to take the suggestion that Malia had and change appellee to director, because I do think it's a little bit confusing. Appellee, appellant, it's a lot to keep track of. So I think that was a really good suggestion.
It probably should be spelled out and all that rot, but I just want to capture it. Lee McIntosh, you have a comment? Unmute.
Sorry, can we actually have what the actual motion was that we made and voted on so that we know what our facts have to focus on? I think that would help tremendously.
Okay, I was trying. I have no idea what you guys are going to see, so bear with me. What we need are the minutes. Poop. And it's only 44 pages for me to try and find it. Do you remember what page it was on? Okay, where's the motion? Here's the motion. Is that the first motion?
Page 40.
No, that was just to get executive session. This is the first or the second?
I like to say that I believe this document is very simple, concise. We don't represent either parties. We've reviewed things at length, and as simply put, this document states exactly what we came to a conclusion on in the last meeting. So as mentioned, we don't need an entire list of every detail that we've already reviewed, which can be reviewed if this gets appealed again. So I'd like to reiterate my motion that this document is the one that we want to adopt. We should adopt.
And this is the motion that was voted on. to reverse the director's decision that the structure at issue in this appeal is an unoccupied unit on the grounds that the decision was rendered in violation of code and clearly erroneous. So it's a pretty pithy motion. I don't think we revised it. No, we did not. So we basically are just saying it's not an unoccupied unit for purposes of this appeal. Whether some of you individuals considered whether or not it could be occupied, it never has been occupied, it's residential, it's the issue, I think that's just sweet and short, like Elise said, was didn't get a water bill. And the definition of occupied unit, which is in the conclusions of law, this piece here says it needs and currently receives a water bill. And that is not the case. And therefore, the majority voted.
If you look at conclusion of law 4, that summarizes what the decision was.
Can you see? I don't know what I'm doing now.
You can, it's right there, right? 1.
Okay, I lost my Zoom screen. Sorry. Oh, you're seeing me whack back and forth. I'm sorry. So this,
I'm afraid I have to leave for another meeting, so I just want to leave you with the commission with these parting words. If you could scroll back to the third item again, please, Georgine. Yeah, I really take issue with the language here, and it's really disappointing. My understanding is that the findings of fact are a preamble for the judge to see what the facts were that influenced our decision as a commission. There's no role for appellant maintained. That's irrelevant. That's not a fact. And I would love to see, and I'm going to make the motion now, if I may, that we strike appellant maintained from this statement. Even the statement doesn't make sense grammatically. It just doesn't make, doesn't make sense. You know, so you need to strike appellant maintain and just start with the structure or commission determined that the structure the DEM director determined to be occupied, blah, blah, blah. Strike out appellant maintain and insert in there the commission determined that. That would be a fact. Good, so that's my motion.
so you're also motioning to.
Georgine, I think your
revise
job
the
is to ask for
earlier
a
motion.
second. I think as the chair, your role right now is to ask, is there a second?
Isn't there already a motion on the table?
Yes, there is. And so that's,
I think
we
Lee's
need to
confusion
vote
is
on the
that,
motion on the table. And
Could
if
you
we're
restate
done
the
with,
motion on the table?
And Ms. Cardwell's been waiting patiently.
I need to leave here in just a few minutes.
I've lost my view of the who's attending, so excuse me.
I'd like to make a couple of comments, if that's okay.
Sure.
I don't agree with Dee on this, mainly because we are, as Cody and Sinclair has said multiple times, that we are working with what we decided in our last meeting. So whether or not we now agree or disagree with what we decided is irrelevant. We have to work with what we decided in our last meeting. And so that's why this findings in fact has to be in alignment with what we decided. We can't now decide these new things. So even if we're disappointed with that, which I am.
I'm disappointed to see such poor performance.
I
No,
think
we
you're
make a point of
procedure.
order.
Yeah, you need
What I'm proposing is an alignment with what we did. It's not
We
contradictory.
need to vote on the current motion, and the current motion was adopt the EMC draft as is. And Peter, will you take a vote on that motion?
Just as a point of order,
Before
Chair,
my edits.
there needs to be some decorum. Respectfully, Commissioner Fulton, you interrupt everyone. Ms. Cardwell has waited patiently. And I just, whether she and I agree or disagree, she needs to have an opportunity to say what she has to say. She's waited a long time and you keep interrupting. So I just make a point of order that we allow everyone to have, every commissioner to have their turn to speak respectfully. That's all.
But I think, Melissa, did you have any other comments to make?
I did have another comment because because there's this motion on the table, and I think adding residential is problematic because, as Malia said, it's not commercial. It's either commercial or residential. So if we say it's not an occupied unit or residential, that's not accurate because it is residential. It's got to be one or the other, right? So I don't think we can phrase it in that way.
So I think we're at the case of making a vote on the original motion. Lee, do you have a comment on the original motion?
So the original motion was to accept it as is. If
As
that's
is.
true, then why are we making all these changes?
Well,
guess is my
that will
question.
generate a new motion.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Chair Adams, I withdraw my motion.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn. Now I need a new motion. And the new motion needs to deal with, we could do these, which was to scratch this appellant maintained piece, as well as put in DEM director. It sounds, or residential, has, if it's Dee's motion, that's what she wanted. And then to correct the date of the meeting.
And Georgine, there's other date corrections in there. So
Is it
Are there
possible,
other-
Commissioner McIntosh, is it possible to choose this as a document to work from and make changes and then accept it at the end rather than having to try and articulate what each and every change has to be through a motion? Can we do that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I don't know, Robert's rule, people, can we?
I don't know what the Robert's rules are, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, can.
the way to
we-
do what he's proposing is that, like what I said earlier, you make a motion, you guys go through, you do your edits, and then you make a motion to accept the edited version.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept this document as it is with the understanding that we're going to make grammatical changes to it and date changes.
I would second that motion if I can.
I'll second it.
Okay, Lee seconds it. Let's
Commissioner
have a vote.
McIntosh.
So the vote is to accept this document, but to then edit for clarity and accuracy on another round of discussion. So can you take a roll call, Peter?
The motion, let me get this straight, accept the
Document as is with the understanding that we're going to make grammatical changes for
Okay.
accuracy.
got it. Mr. Burns.
Sorry, just to interrupt. I'm so sorry. This is technically Sinclair's arena, but I don't see him on here. Robert's Rules of Order. So we have a motion, we have a second, then you do your discussion. You would talk about whatever changes or grammatical corrections you want to make. And then you would, I think it's too early for a roll call. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure where Sinclair is, but have a discussion about the grammatical and or changes you want to make. And then, just clarify, it would be a motion to approve as amended based on the discussion and then vote. Sorry.
Perfect.
Georgine, do you want to start at the top, the dates up there? I saw a couple April 20th. April 20th.
Ah, you're right. Okay.
And there was another one in the findings of fact, I believe.
Number 2.
Right, number 2, yeah.
And sorry, Malia, just jumping in real quick. So in that first paragraph, then you would change where it says appellee.
Yeah,
you just change that to director if you're gonna do director throughout the document.
We're gonna take out appellee wherever it occurs.
yeah, because
Change
it's
it to
too
director.
it's too confusing.
This is going to a court. It won't bother
Yeah.
him.
You're
Okay.
just changing
I think
appellee to director.
You can leave that in, Georgine. Appellee, everything after number 1, I think is what she meant.
So don't
Actually, you're
strike
just
it,
changing.
yeah, don't strike it. Just delete appellee and type in director. Sinclair
Yeah.
can fix it, I'm sure thereafter, but
It says director right above it.
yeah, but so it's director of the Department of Environmental Management, and then we say kind of here and after. So just change appellee and type in director, and everywhere else that you have appellee would put director. I believe that's what you guys want, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And Sinclair can fix that.
And just so you know, no lawyer is going to be confused over appellee or director. So this is a legal document written for judges and attorneys. So just so you understand that.
So at any rate, everywhere we got an appellee, we're gonna change it to director. And you'll catch that. I'm just trying to have some people can see. Are there other April 20th that need fixing?
I thought there was one more at the bottom. No.
There was one at number 5.
And Georgine, I think we also need to take out residential unit because it is.
We had, is Dee no longer with us?
No, she stepped off.
Okay, so if we take out residential, which I agree is
Redundant, maybe.
and unnecessary.
Dee did have a point. You can say that the structure the DM director determined to be an unoccupied unit per blah, blah, blah was not an unoccupied unit, because that is something you guys found, right? So you can't take that out. You can just take out appellant maintain that and just the structure, the DM.
The structure?
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Voting, but this will be the draft that we do vote on. And not talk about where the fact came from. Okay. Director said, oh, yes, it is an unoccupied unit. And we decided, no, it isn't.
I mean, you could even delete that one.
What? This one? Number 4, just take it out?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make it even cleaner.
I mean, it's kind of obviously he did, otherwise he wouldn't have done what he did. So we got to renumber that. I hate Word. Yeah, you'll be cleaning this up, right? And then the conclusions of law are, we have a definition of unoccupied unit, and this is it. And then they'll get, I'm not even sure why we're saying that, but this is true too. It gets a maintenance fee. We get to decide if something is violating the law or erroneous, and this is our finding. because it didn't currently receive a water bill as required.
I think you guys should just go ahead and vote on what you guys just did and just accept
Okay,
it.
ready to take this? Am I done making changes?
Yep.
Short of putting director instead of appellee?
Yes.
Okay, let us, in the current draft, as shown, except for putting in director for appellee everywhere.
Malia has her hand up.
Is the motion, will somebody else make it?
I thought we had a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Because
so
this is just a discussion.
Okay,
So we
this
haven't
is the
voted on
version.
it yet.
Okay, this is the version now that we are going to vote for, with the caveat that I didn't necessarily catch all appellees.
Okay, ready? Motion on the floor is to.
Aye.
Yeah.
Sorry, Peter.
As amended, made by Commissioner Cardwell, seconded by Chair Adams. Mr. Burns is absent. Ms. Cardwell votes aye. Ms. Fulton is absent. Mr. Gaffney,
Aye.
aye. Mr. McIntosh,
Aye.
aye. Mr. Olson excused. Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
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 Chair Adams,
Aye.
Chair 5 votes in favor, 1 excused, 2 absent.
Okay, that does it. It is adopted.
So D, you can, I mean, not T, sorry. Jordine. Sorry
I
about
will
that.
send you my
Like,
version right here, yes.
You can send that to me and Peter, and then we'll get it to you for your signature and get it sent to the parties. And thankfully, we're done with this for now. So I'm gonna, I'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That agenda item is done. What time? It's 12:13. Holy cow. Are there any burning issues that, stop sharing my garbage screen, thank you, that you want to give to us, Ramsey, if you're still on? Or Senna? Skipping to item 8.
Item 8.
That was just the update from DPM.
No, I mean, if you want me to talk about it, but it's up to you guys. I mean, so since we're saying it's going anyway, I was just asked to update on the grants that we're applying for. And March 15th, we, with the R&D and with the coalition of 8 other coalition members of the county, applied for a massive grant for the Build Back Better. And we're just waiting to hear back from that. If we are awarded that part, DEM we ask for 3 new positions and the funding to get a database. The main reason for the positions is education, networking program to kind of, similar to the Food Network program out of R&D. It's just to connect the county with, on a regular basis, all the Big Island as far as what's going on all around diversion wise. And then the funding for a database and a database manager, so we can actually go out and find out what is actually being diverted. The only data that we have is our, excuse me, is our county programs. And if you look at just the county programs, it shows just a diversion number of around 20%. And that's just not accurate. So it's hard to argue anything when we don't have accurate numbers. So we used to have volunteers that track that, but we identified a database that would work beautifully, and then having someone that would full-time manage that and be managing, reaching out to businesses, private sector, and to collect that data and make it public. So we hopefully will find out by the end of, what is it now, May? Well, hopefully we'll find out by the end of June if we get that money. So that's all. Thank you.
Great. I guess I should ask the question, everybody. Do you want to very soon end this meeting, or would you want to take a break and reconvene?
I'd like to
End the
end the
meeting.
Yeah. It's a long time, I know. I knew I crammed way too much into this. The only timely issue may or may not be the discussion in the climate change and I don't know, whatever else, environmental stuff committee that Rebecca Villegas has at the council introduced a bill 167. If you want to look at the record and track it, maybe Peter could let us know the status of that thing. There were questions raised by the other committee, some of the other committee members. I don't know if it's going to be modified any. This is a bill that would only allow people to use sunscreens with titanium dioxide or zinc oxide and nothing else. It also puts an enforcement responsibility on DEM to check that the stuff isn't being sold. So it would fall under our purview insofar as DEM is being brought into it. Testimony was filed with the council committee, and you're welcome to look at that if you individually want to have comments. I don't know if we want to take time today, just in case it may wind up early in June or before our next meeting. If we want to submit formal testimony as EMC. So
That's gonna be a pretty big discussion, maybe, because there's a lot to say about that. I think it'd just be better to do it next time, and if it does come on the bill reading or whatever, then I guess we could submit testimony individually and then tackle it. I don't know.
I think what Georgine is saying though is it could come up before our next meeting. So that's why it's on the agenda for today. Is that correct, Georgine?
Yep. And I don't know if that's
I
going to be.
haven't had Mhm. I haven't had a chance to actually look at the bill, so I don't know what it says exactly. Or, I don't know,
It's
because you said
pretty
it.
short and sweet. It basically says only mineral sunscreens with these two minerals, titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, will be used on this island. Can be distributed, sold for use on the island. It doesn't ban the use, which apparently Maui did. So the DEM is not going to be running around the beach grabbing sunscreen out of your hands. But it would prohibit sale and distribution of anything else, unless you had a prescription from your doctor. If you want to see my comments, I didn't like it. But I think we just don't have time to grind through it today. Unless you guys want to. I don't have anything on my calendar this afternoon, so we could keep jabbering.
But to Lee's point, we could all submit individual testimony. I think
always.
unfortunately, as a commission, this might be just out of our grasp today.
I mean, one of the biggest issues, I think, and you can look in our own testimony file, that it puts a responsibility on DEM to enforce a discharge to water that they don't really do and have no staff to do. So it's all kind of,
It sounds like it'd be like a Department of Land and Natural Resources issue more than DM, but I don't know. I mean, I was just looking at the bill. I definitely
it needs some more discussion. I'm going to mark it as defer it, and I will ask Peter if you see it agendized for the council, shoot out one of your lookout emails so that people can have an opportunity if they wish
June
to
1st
comment individually.
is the next June 1st is where it's going to show up next.
I would, do we still have somebody from Corporation Council on?
Sinclair?
I'm here. Does somebody have a legal question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we have the legal authority to enforce. I don't think we're advisory, yes.
Oh, yeah, it isn't us, it's DEM. I'm sorry if I misspoke. It requires DEM to enforce.
If you guys could enforce, a lot of people would be in trouble.
And I don't think it requires DEM to enforce. It states a county policy. It doesn't
well,
state that the DEM has to enforce it.
There's
There's a huge difference.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Read the bill. Read the bill.
Read the bill. I've provided testimony. I would also suggest to the commissioners that another approach you can take is to communicate directly with your council person for your district. So you can send testimony to the larger council, and you can also provide input to your individual council person so that they know how you feel as a Environmental Management Commission commissioner.
Well, as an individual.
As an individual, absolutely.
I do concur that it's got to be gone, but how we go about that remains to be seen.
The other item that we didn't get to, which for sure might take some time, is item 5.5 on code changes. And I think we need some time on that. Obviously, one point to do, and I threw out an example of get off this horse on unoccupied units being charged sewer bills, and let's cast that in a different way. It's what gets sent to the sewage treatment plant, how much and who's going to pay for it, rather than doing detective work, take pictures inside a window of random buildings and doing stuff like that. So anyway, I laid out a couple. I would also encourage you to look at the write-up, the testimony we received on littering. I'm sure we can get the person that submitted the testimony, Catherine Cooper, I think, to try to participate in our next meeting. But littering is obviously an issue, and what the requirements are and how we can tackle that through multiple venues is also an issue, potentially for code revision. And if there's anything else that you've been irritated by all these years, I think it would be, it is within our charter to look at those things and to make recommendations. So I'm going to keep that on next time's agenda to work on, and again would recommend you parse through all that yucky regulation stuff. One question I am going to, and I guess I'll have to send it to Malia. I don't think you do this stuff, Sinclair, is the issue of DEM enforcement. What can they do to enforce against individuals? For example, there's regulation that says when you take something to transfer station, your load should be secured, so you're not flying it off on the highway on the way. And there is an administrative penalty for violating regulations, DEM regulations. But the claim was made by our testifier that, oh, the people who work at transfer stations can't do anything, can't enforce it. They just tell people. Well, who the heck does issue citations against that are $250 a violation? I think I saw somewhere. Who can? We're the
County
same
Police
about
Department.
vehicles. Who can who in DEM or can DEM enforce their own regulations? I have no clue. I just assumed they could. But so is that a question I sent to Malia?
So Georgina, are you talking about the sunscreen bill that says DEM shall enforce the law?
It's another one that they
Anything else?
don't enforce, wouldn't enforce, but we do have specific ones dealing with what gets taken to a transfer station, how even if you're going to haul it to the landfill, sewering, the pretreatment stuff is going to also enable some enforcement opportunities. So there are all sorts of rules on the books that say, you know, you can't violate these regulations, and here's how much a violation costs. But I don't know what the process is to issue a violation.
Yeah, so it's got to be, so like criminal laws, right? Like the police department enforces all violations of criminal law and different types of laws. Then you got to look at the statute and see what it says. So a lot of statutes, like for example, that sunscreen one said DEM will be an enforcement agency. So then based on that statute, DEM could go and make agency rules to talk about how they're going to do that. And they'd probably have to create a position and stuff like that. So it's really, you have to look at the statute and see who the statute says will be enforcing it. So it's a real fact specific question. It's not a general question that can be answered. But you can ask Ramsey that question. I mean, you gotta, but you gotta be specific, Georgine, like what you're talking about, like who enforces this law. And then that'll be something a lawyer or Ramsey could answer. You can always ask.
I'll do that on the side, then hopefully it'll be part of the conversation we can have next time. But it is related to the issue. And that was some of the comment raised at the council committee meeting of, yeah, DEM can do this kind of stuff. Don't worry, we're not expecting it to be enforced. It's just our policy. Quit writing regulations that say it'll be enforced, and a penalty of $1,000 to distribute anything that's not metallic. So anyway, all right, moving on, quit talking. So I've got two big hunks that'll get deferred. I don't know, the budget meetings are still being finalized with the council, so we can always ask that question next time of DEM. And I've lost my last page of our agenda. So if any of you want additional things, because I haven't come up with enough, let me know. At some point, I'm going to get you, Senna, on the life cycle study. Our next meeting is June 22nd, and it'll be in Kona at the West Hawaii Civic Center, but we'll also keep doing Zoom. I hope everybody stays safe and doesn't get COVID. But I think the Zoom works pretty well, but I am just itching to get up there with spreadsheets and flip charts and start writing ideas down as a group, because it drives me crazy trying to type it online here. So could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
John, second.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Thanks a lot, guys. I know it was a try.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.